Hello, my name is Cecilia Lopez-Saucedo. Today I will be talking to you about the effectiveness of games and simulations in a third grade classroom. To help us focus on this topic, I've selected a research study. The title of this study is Learning in Serious Virtual Worlds, Evaluation of Learning Effectiveness and Appeal to Students in the eJunior project. The researchers for this study were Maja Borsisian and Mariano Alcañiz Raya in 2010. So to introduce their study, these two researchers were talking about how computer games are now enjoyed by millions of people around the world as new technologies are being invented. Student motivation continues to be defined as one of the most difficult aspects of teaching, and in the hopes that, technology will help motivate our students. They wanted to do more research on this. And also students' attitudes while playing games are very different from their attitudes towards classroom instruction. And classes taught at school often have recourse to extrinsic motivational factors such as rewards, praise, and punishment, while computer games seem to resort to intrinsic motivational factors. Then they started focusing on serious games, which are also called as Gs. Serious games are a combination of curricular content and computer games that create a powerful and effective learning environment in the following ways. They use actions instead of explanations and create personal motivation and satisfaction. They reinforce skill mastery and accommodate multiple learning styles and abilities, and they provide a context for interactive decision making. So these are some of the positive reasons why we should be using serious games in education. So the purpose of the study was to fill in some of the gaps in the literature review on serious games. The study assesses the learning effectiveness and appeal to students of the eJunior application, which is a serious virtual world, that follows the curricular objectives of Spanish primary schools and the pedagogical theories. And what was used in this study, it was called eJunior, which is again a serious virtual world. And the goal was to introduce students to the basic notions of natural science and ecology of the Mediterranean Sea. It encouraged active learning in an immersive and interactive virtual aquatic world in which students have the opportunity to discover information about the Mediterranean Sea, engage themselves in collaborative and competitive play, and test their understanding about explained scientific concepts. These are some of the pictures of how the virtual world looked like, the one that the students were using. So figure 1 shows you the virtual aquatic world. Figure 2 shows you a fish avatar. So each of the students would be a different avatar. They will participate in the dynamics of the ecosystem. And then the picture in the bottom, figure 3, shows you how the students would interact with eJunior. So eJunior is structured around narratives that describe the following concepts. A, an introduction to the universe, the earth, and the environment. B, an introduction to the ecosystem of the Mediterranean Sea. It includes an interaction exercise to allow students to try the navigational input device with a paddle. And C, an explanation of the scientific concept, the dynamic of the Posidonia oceanica, followed by an explanation of the game rules, under what conditions the elements can be collected, and an interactive gaming part. The method for the study. The study compared two different types of natural science and ecology classes. So the researchers came up with these two hypotheses based on literature review that they had read beforehand. So students from the virtual group would have significantly greater learning performance in natural science and ecology than students from the traditional group. And the second hypothesis was that student evaluations would show that the virtual classes have significantly greater appeal to students than the traditional classes. They had 48 sixth grade children in this study that participated in the study. 20 of them were boys and 28 were girls. They were all from 10 to 11 years old. Each child was randomly assigned to one of the two groups, either the virtual group or the traditional group, after filling out the pretest knowledge questionnaire about natural science and ecology. The instruments that they used were qualitative and quantitative data. And to get this data, they had 3 paper-based questionnaires. The first one was a pretest questionnaire, the second one was a post-test questionnaire, and the third one was a post-test feedback questionnaire. And to go more deep into what these questionnaires were about, the pretest questionnaire was information that they were trying to gather from the participants, and they were asked information such as gender, age, school grade, frequency of computer use, frequency of computer gaming, and enjoyment of computer games. The post-test questionnaire was an it had 2 sections. It had open-ended and closed-ended questions to assess students' knowledge of the scientific concept before the study began. It consisted of 11 multiple-choice questions on natural science and ecology concepts, which were derived from the learning objectives and the subject matter contents used to create both the traditional and the virtual classes. And the post-test questionnaire. This questionnaire was aimed to assess students' knowledge of the scientific concepts presented during the classes. Therefore, the closed-ended questions of the post-test feedback questionnaire aimed to assess appeal to students and included 18 items that studied 6 dimensions. So the first one was perceived usefulness, B was intention to use, C perceived educational value, D engagement, and D intrinsic motivation, and the last one enjoyment. And the open-ended questions of the post-feedback questionnaire aim to obtain students' opinions about positive and negative characteristics, as well as improvement proposals for both types of classes. The procedure. Participants were then randomly assigned to one of the 2 groups, the traditional group or the virtual group. All students from the traditional group participated in the traditional class, and the rest of the students attended the virtual class in groups of 4 on the same day. Each class session lasted 25 minutes. The time needed to fill out the questionnaire were approximately 5 minutes for the pretest biographical information, 15 minutes for the knowledge pretest, 15 minutes for the knowledge post-test, and 10 minutes for the post-test feedback questionnaire. So the following slides we're gonna focus on the results. The first result that they talked about was a comparison of the 2 groups with regards to biographical variables, and they found that there was no statistically significant difference between them. The second one was comparison of the 2 groups with regards to the knowledge test, and the analysis of the pretest showed no statistically significant difference between them as well, meaning that both groups had similar background knowledge about natural science and ecology. The third result, comparison of the 2 types of classes with regards to appeal to students. The results showed that on the general level, there is a statistically significant difference between 2 groups with regards to the appeal to students. Students reported being significantly more engaged in the virtual class than in the traditional classroom. Students reported enjoying the class significantly more in the virtual classroom than in the traditional classroom, and students reported greater intention to participate in the virtual class than in the traditional classroom. Observation of the children during classes. Throughout the researchers' observations, the virtual group seemed very enthusiastic about the idea of having a 3D lesson. They noticed that the children were more engaged, involved, and absorbed the information. During the virtual class, the majority of the students collaborated collectively, helping each other to understand the game rules and to navigate in the aquatic world. And it was also noted that children in the virtual group were disappointed when the researcher informed them that the class had ended. On the other hand, the traditional group showed a high level of attention and involvement only at the beginning stage of the class. The study had 2 limitations. One of them was difference in tutors. The traditional classroom had a traditional instructor or tutor meaning they had a person there live who they can ask questions to. And in the virtual world, they had their tutor that was a virtual tutor. And they also had a difference in class sizes, meaning that the classroom in the traditional setting was, a traditional classroom of 30 students, and the virtual classroom, they were only able to take 4 students at a time. In conclusion, this study showed that the serious virtual world is an effective tool that can be used to satisfy and engage students. However, they noticed that there wasn't really a difference in the learning. So the lack of statistically significant learning effectiveness confirms the need for improvements in this area. So new technologies used in education must be carefully chosen and applied in order to help students not only enjoy the aesthetical aspect, but also to learn while playing. A few personal thoughts, and to conclude my presentation, finding what motivates students, it's always a step towards the right direction. So even though the results didn't show that students gain more knowledge in the virtual world classroom, I still feel that it was a positive finding, because now we know that we should be looking more into these virtual games for them to learn and to keep them motivated. Another thought is just making sure that we're supporting all the teachers in their professional development if we want them to feel confident in using these types of games in the classroom. And lastly, just having the technology accessible is a must. We can expect them to be using these games if they don't have the right equipment and technology in their classrooms. And that is it for today. Thank you for watching my video.